Beneath a hill in Jerusalem, 2 tiny silver scrolls sat in a tomb for 2,600 years. When scientists finally unrolled them, they found a prayer so old it predates every known copy of the Bible by 4 centuries. In the caves above the Dead Sea, a copper scroll lists 64 locations of buried treasure worth billions, and not a single cache has ever been found. And on a mountain where the Bible says Joshua built an altar, a folded lead tablet may contain the oldest Hebrew writing ever discovered, except half the scientific community thinks it says nothing at all. These are not myths. They are real objects sitting in real museums, and every single one of them raises questions that nobody has been able to answer. Today, we are counting down 15 ancient Jewish discoveries that science still cannot explain. If this is your first time on Discovery Journals, subscribe right now. We dig into the mysteries that textbooks skip over. Number 15. The Pilate Stone. For centuries, critics argued that Pontius Pilate might not have been a real historical figure. Then in 1961, Italian archaeologists excavating the Roman theater at Caesarea Maritima in Israel found a limestone block with a Latin inscription bearing his name and title, Prefect of Judea. It is the only archaeological evidence directly confirming the existence of the man who, according to the Gospels, sentenced Jesus to death. The stone had been reused as a step in a 4th century renovation, face down as if someone had deliberately hidden it. Why a Roman dedication stone ended up buried under a staircase remains unexplained. Number 14. The Magdala Stone. In 2009, construction workers building a hotel near the Sea of Galilee accidentally uncovered a 1st century synagogue in the town of Magdala, the hometown of Mary Magdalene. Inside sat a carved stone block unlike anything ever found in ancient Judaism. One side depicts a 7-branched menorah, the oldest known carved depiction of the temple menorah, carved while the actual temple in Jerusalem was still standing. The stone appears to be a miniature representation of the Holy of Holies itself, and that raises an enormous question. No one was allowed to see the inner sanctum of the temple except the high priest, and then only once a year. So how did a sculptor in a small Galilean fishing town know what it looked like? Number 13. The Bet Yarim Catacombs. Carved into the hills of Lower Galilee, this massive necropolis served as the central burial site for Jews across the Roman Empire from the 2nd to the 4th century. Over 30 burial caves contain hundreds of stone sarcophagi, many decorated with Jewish symbols alongside Greek inscriptions and even pagan imagery like bulls and lions. In one chamber, a 9-ton stone door still swings on its original hinges after 18 centuries. The engineering behind that door defies easy explanation. But the real mystery is cultural. Why were devout Jews burying their dead with images of Greek gods? Either 2nd century Judaism was far more diverse than anyone assumed, or we are fundamentally misunderstanding what these symbols meant. Number 12. Qumran Cave 12. The Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered between 1946 and 1956 in 11 caves near the Dead Sea. Scholars assume that was all of them. Then, in 2017, archaeologists found a 12th cave. Inside were storage jars identical to those used for the original scrolls, along with leather wrapping, string, and a blank piece of parchment. Every indication suggests scrolls were stored there and deliberately removed. The cave had been looted, probably in the 1950s, and the scrolls sold on the black market. Somewhere in the world, ancient biblical manuscripts that could rewrite our understanding of Jewish history are sitting in a private collection, and no one knows where. Number 11. The Copper Scroll. Among the Dead Sea Scrolls, one document stands completely apart. While every other scroll is written on parchment or papyrus, This one is engraved on sheets of pure copper. It is not a religious text. It is a treasure map. It lists 64 locations across Israel where enormous quantities of gold and silver are supposedly buried, totaling an estimated 65 tons of precious metals. Some scholars calculate the value at over $1 billion today. The descriptions are maddeningly specific, mentioning cisterns, tombs, and landmarks that no longer exist. Despite decades of searching, not a single cache has been found. Either the treasure was moved, or the landmarks have been misidentified, or the entire document is an ancient fiction. But nobody engraves fiction on copper. Copper is permanent. Whoever made this wanted it to last forever. Number 10. Masada. In 73 CE, 960 Jewish rebels held the mountaintop fortress of Masada against 15,000 Roman soldiers for months. According to the historian Josephus, when the Romans finally breached the walls, they found the defenders had killed themselves rather than submit to slavery. Archaeologists found the fortress exactly as Josephus described: storerooms stocked with food, bathhouses, a synagogue, and 11 small pottery shards inscribed with names, possibly the lots drawn to decide who would carry out the final act. But here is what science cannot explain. Modern analysis of the site suggests the food stores could have sustained the defenders for years. They were not starving. They chose death with full bellies. And the Roman siege ramp, a massive earthen structure the legions built to reach the summit, should have collapsed under its own weight given the slope angle. Engineers still debate how it held. If any of this surprises you, hit that like button now and tell us in the comments which discovery shocked you the most. Number 9. The Temple Mount Sifting Project. In 1999, the Islamic Waqf used heavy machinery to excavate beneath the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, dumping 400 truckloads of archaeologically rich soil into the Kidron Valley. Israeli archaeologists rescued the material and began sifting through it by hand. What they found was staggering. Coins from every period of Jerusalem's history. Arrowheads from the Babylonian destruction in 586 BCE. Floor tiles matching descriptions of Herod's temple. A tiny gold bell that may have hung from the robe of a priest. A clay seal impression bearing the name of a family mentioned in the book of Jeremiah. Over 500,000 artifacts have been recovered so far. The original context is lost forever because the material was dumped without documentation, and that means every object raises questions that can never be fully answered. Number 8. The James Ossuary. In 2002, a limestone bone box surfaced bearing an Aramaic inscription that reads, "James, son of Joseph, brother of Jesus." If authentic, it is the only archaeological artifact directly referencing Jesus of Nazareth from the 1st century. The Israeli Antiquities Authority declared it a forgery. The owner was put on trial. The trial lasted 7 years, the longest in Israeli legal history, and the judge ultimately ruled that the prosecution had failed to prove the inscription was fake. But he also stopped short of declaring it genuine. The ossuary sits in legal and scientific limbo. The limestone is authentically ancient. The patina inside the inscription letters is consistent with 2,000 years of aging, and nobody has been able to prove conclusively whether those 3 words, brother of Jesus, were carved in the 1st century or the 20th century. Number 7. The Siloam Tunnel. In 701 BCE, with the Assyrian army approaching Jerusalem, King Hezekiah ordered a tunnel cut through solid rock to divert the Gihon Spring inside the city walls. The tunnel stretches 533 meters and was carved from both ends simultaneously. The 2 teams met in the middle with an error of less than 1 meter. An inscription found inside the tunnel, now in the Istanbul Archaeological Museum, describes the moment the diggers heard each other's picks through the rock. Without GPS, without laser levels, without any technology more advanced than oil lamps and copper tools, they achieved a precision that modern engineers say would require careful surveying. How two teams navigated through 500 meters of pitch-black limestone and met within arm's reach remains one of the great engineering mysteries of the ancient world. Number 6. Hezekiah's Royal Seal. In 2015, during excavations near the southern wall of Jerusalem's Temple Mount, archaeologist Eilat Mazar discovered a tiny clay seal impression barely a centimeter across. Pressed into it were the words belonging to Hezekiah, son of Ahaz, king of Judah. It is the first seal of an Israelite or Judahite king ever found in a controlled archaeological excavation. The seal was found just meters from where a second seal, belonging to the prophet Isaiah, was discovered shortly afterward. The Bible describes Hezekiah and Isaiah as contemporaries who worked closely together. Finding their personal seals within 3 meters of each other 2,700 years later is either an extraordinary coincidence or direct confirmation of the biblical narrative. Number 5. The Pool of Siloam. The Gospel of John describes Jesus healing a blind man at the Pool of Siloam in Jerusalem. For centuries, scholars debated whether such a pool existed. Then, in 2004, city workers repairing a sewage line accidentally broke through into an ancient stone structure. Excavations revealed a monumental stepped pool dating to the 1st century, exactly where the Gospel placed it. The pool measured roughly 7,500 square feet, far larger than anyone had imagined. Coins of Alexander Jannaeus found in the plaster confirmed the dating. The pool that many academics had dismissed as literary invention turned out to be real, massive, and precisely where the text said it was. Number 4. The Tel Dan Stele. In 1993, archaeologist Avraham Biran found a fragment of a basalt victory monument at Tel Dan in northern Israel. The inscription, written by an Aramean king in the 9th century BCE, contained the phrase House of David, the first reference to King David ever found outside the Bible. A second fragment found the following year confirmed the reading. Before this discovery, a growing number of scholars had argued that David was a mythological figure invented by later biblical writers. The Tel Dan Stele forced a complete reassessment. An enemy king bragging about defeating the dynasty of David is about as hostile a witness as you can get, and hostile witnesses are the most credible kind. Number 3. The Ketef Hinnom Silver Scrolls. In 1979, archaeologist Gabriel Barkay was excavating burial caves on a hillside southwest of Jerusalem's Old City when a 13-year-old volunteer found a hidden repository beneath the floor of one chamber. Inside lay 2 tiny silver scrolls, each barely 2.5 centimeters long. They were so brittle that it took 3 years just to unroll the larger one. When scientists finally deciphered the text, they found the priestly blessing from the Book of Numbers. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. These scrolls date to the 7th century BCE, roughly 2,600 years ago. They predate the oldest Dead Sea Scrolls by 400 years. They are the oldest surviving text from the Hebrew Bible ever found, and they contain the oldest known reference to the name of God, YHWH, found in Jerusalem. The fact that the text matches the version we read today, after 26 centuries of copying, is something scholars still marvel at. Number 2. The Mount Ebal Curse Tablet. In 2019, archaeologist Scott Stripling was wet-sifting debris from a decades-old excavation on Mount Ebal in Samaria when he found a folded lead tablet, roughly 2 centimeters across. X-ray tomography scans at the Czech Academy of Sciences revealed what the team claims are 48 Proto-Hebrew letters forming a curse that reads, cursed, cursed, cursed. Cursed by the god YHW. You will die cursed. If the reading is correct, the tablet dates to between 1400 and 1200 BCE, making it the oldest Hebrew inscription ever found in Israel by at least 2 centuries. The implications would be enormous. It would prove that the Israelites were literate centuries earlier than most scholars believe, and it would confirm that worship of Yahweh was already established in the land at the time the Bible places Joshua's altar on that exact mountain. But here is why the debate rages. A peer-reviewed rebuttal published in Heritage Science in 2024 argued that the markings are not letters at all, that the tablet is simply a lead fishing weight with random scratches. The original team stands by their reading. The tablet remains the most contested object in biblical archaeology, and neither side is backing down. Number 1. The Dead Sea Scrolls. Between 1946 and 1956, Bedouin shepherds and archaeologists pulled roughly 970 manuscripts from 11 caves overlooking the Dead Sea. The scrolls date from the 3rd century BCE to the 1st century CE, and include fragments of every book of the Hebrew Bible except Esther. Some match the Masoretic text almost word for word. Others show significant variations that suggest competing versions of Scripture circulated simultaneously. But here is what science still cannot explain. The scrolls include texts that do not appear in any known biblical tradition. Mysterious sectarian writings describe a teacher of righteousness locked in conflict with a wicked priest. There are apocalyptic war manuals, angelic liturgies, and calendrical documents that use a solar calendar and contradict the Jewish lunar calendar. The community that produced these texts, widely believed to be the Essenes, vanished completely after the Roman destruction in 70 CE. 70 years after the initial discovery, over 20,000 fragments have been cataloged, but many remain untranslated. Some are held in private collections that restrict access, and the identity of the teacher of righteousness, the single most important figure in these texts, remains completely unknown. The largest archaeological discovery of the 20th century still holds secrets that no one has cracked. Every one of these 15 objects is real, documented, and sitting in a museum or archaeological site you can visit. None of them require conspiracy theories. But every single one of them forces us to admit that the ancient Jewish world was far more complex, far more sophisticated, and far more mysterious than any textbook has ever captured. Thank you for watching. If this changed what you thought you knew, subscribe to Discovery Journals and hit the bell. And if you want the full story behind discoveries like the Ashkenazi founding mothers or the Cohen DNA, check out Bloodlines and Borders. The link is in the description. We will see you in the next one.